I never thought I'd get to cast a spell in Hogsmeade. I never thought coming face to face with a hungry T-Rex would make my dad scream so loud.
And I have never felt more scared or alive.
If you haven't been to Universal Studios Hollywood lately, come see what you've been missing. This summer, join Master Po and his Kung Fu Panda friends on an awesome adventure at the new DreamWorks Theater, opening June 15th. Buy online and save at universalstudioshollywood.com. Restrictions apply.
Welcome to Women Leading the Way radio show, where each time you'll hear from successful women CEOs, executives, and professionals, where we'll discover how they do what they do to be successful in business. We'll be interviewing women who have overcome big challenges, women who have incredible stories of lessons learned in dealing with adversity. We'll even interview women who have started and grown successful organizations, and women who are C-level executives with unique talents and positions. Our goal is to bring successful businesswomen together to share how they're leading the way in business today.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Women Lead Radio, brought to you by Connected Women of Influence. I'm Michelle Bergquist, your host today. I am delighted to interview a woman who leads and is an award winner and an amazing founder and president of an incredible organization we're going to hear about. But our topic and title today is Turning Tragedy to Triumph, and I am elated to introduce our leading lady, who is Marjorie Del Toro, and she is the president and founder of ehsInc. What you also need to know about Marjorie is she has built an incredible organization, which we're going to talk about, in some of the tragedy into triumph. And Marjorie, you are an award winner as a game changer within the Women of Influence Award. So say hello to all of our listeners.
Well, hello, everyone. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to share my story.
You have an incredible story, as I know. I mean, I've read about you a couple of years ago, but we finally got you on the radio show, and I know, this whole topic today of turning tragedy into triumph, I'd love for you to share with our listeners just a little bit of an overview about what it is a tongue twister, ehsInc does, because you are in a very male-dominated industry, and I want our listeners to know kind of where you're coming from of what your business is. So can you share that with our listeners for just a quick overview?
Absolutely. Well, ehsInc is an environmental health and safety company. And what we do is we're a full consulting and training company. So the nutshell is we're a safety company. So what we do is we're also a national organization, and we're going into actually Canada at the end of the year, and so I can officially say international here.
Yes, that's kind of cool. That's a cool factor.
It is. It's really cool. So I'm just so excited. We've created a lot of partnerships, strategic partnerships, and the growth is just, I guess my biggest challenge is controlling my growth right now. But, so we're based in Irvine, California, but we do business across the nation. We have a lot of corporate accounts, but the majority of my business comes from construction, also public agencies, and water, wastewater industry. Those are my wheelhouse.
Well, and, Marjorie, I got to ask you, because it's like you really walk in a male-dominated industry. I mean, for you as a female and a leader and a president and founder, it's like, what possessed you to start this business knowing that you've really got, some male domination going on in an industry that you started in and walked in?
Well, I have to say this was not something that I planned. It wasn't something that I thought, let me go to college and get into this industry, which, by the way, is quite common in safety. Most safety professionals that are doing this type of work usually get that position by chance. They're saying, hey, we need someone to fit the safety role, and, well, all of a sudden you're a safety professional. But my story is a little bit different, which kind of brings us to the title about turning tragedy into triumph.
Right. You've got a story here of some, childhood? Was it an accident? I mean, why don't you kind of share what, how this kind of was the impact, right, for you in starting this business?
Absolutely. So just a little bit of background. When I'm first generation from Mexico, we have very humble beginnings, and back when I was about 12, I had an uncle that I remember distinctively that was a very strong male role in my life. And I remember a call that his family received, and my mother received as well. It was my mother's brother. He was actually electrocuted at a workplace and unfortunately lost his life. And as we heard about it, it was just a basic housekeeping incident, which really, it was just, as you can imagine, devastating. He had 3 young children, and they were all under the age of 7, and a wife that just worked so hard, and it was just devastating. But again, I'm 12. I don't really think about anything besides the sadness in the family, if you can imagine. Mm-hmm. Then if you fast forward, you can't make this stuff up, but I was in my second year of college, and I get a call that my mother was also electrocuted, and she was electrocuted on an electric wheelchair. She was a nurse assistant.
Oh my gosh.
I know. She was a nurse assistant in the medical office, or it was Rancho Los Amigos Hospital, and it permanently disabled her. So at that time, my life was just completely turned upside down.
Oh, my goodness.
So I had to stop going to college, and my family had to take care of my mom, and that was my focus. So I started there, and then after that happened, I was just, I just kept working through the corporate ladder, and 20 years ago, I decided, you know what, I want to do something different. I want to change lives. So with $300 in my pocket and a lot of, I'm a faith jumper, a lot of faith, I decided that I would start saving lives anywhere I can. And the only skill that I really had was CPR and first aid. I was an instructor. So I literally went around knocking, as you can imagine, knocking at businesses here in Irvine and saying, hey, I'd love to teach CPR. Got a few hits, and 20 years later, you see what you see now. So
there's a lot of questions in there within those 20 years. It's like there's a lot of little holes there, but oh my gosh. Can you back up a minute, Marjorie? Because to me, sure. I can't even, first of all, I can't even imagine the tragedy of having, it was your uncle, right, and your mom. I mean, to have both workplace accidents have that happen. I mean, when you were in college, at what point did you think, oh my gosh, here I'm going to get into the safety business?
Well, it wasn't, I actually quit going to college. I couldn't finish. So I worked for occupational health medical groups. And so, I worked for physicians. I was a receptionist. And I'm a huge believer in God. And I just prayed about it and say, what am I going to do here? I don't have a business plan. I wasn't a college graduate. And honestly, the decision that I made was, I would remember when I was in Chicago. And my mother was obviously permanently disabled, so she was helping me with my son at the time. And he was, I think like 9-10 months. And I get a call, and she tells me, Marjorie, your son just took his first steps. And I thought to myself, wow. I just literally fell to my knees and prayed and said, God, what am I doing here? My uncle's never coming back to his children. My mother is permanently disabled. I didn't get a childhood. I didn't get a young adult, hood. I didn't have what a lot of people my age at the time got to experience. So at that point, that's when I decided. I literally came back. I had just purchased a house, so being a young adult as well, you're just horrible with your money. I literally had $300 in my pocket. So I came back and gave my notice. It was a 6-figure job and no business plan. All I knew is, God, I trust you. It's what I said, and came back at my notice and took that $300 and bought a copier, fax machine, and copier in one, and answering, it was also a phone. And I moved myself out of my home, moved into an apartment, and and that's how it all started. It really did. I had a business partner back then, which was very instrumental. She came in about a year after I had started it, and she was incredible during that process. But now, this particular organization was renamed and restructured 7 years ago, and since then, this company has really just taken a different road that I'd never imagined, So
right.
It's just incredible. It's just an incredible journey for me. It's not easy. Not easy at all.
I know, and it's like I have like 20,000 questions for you, because honestly, it's like how much, I would imagine a lot, but I just want you to share. I mean, how much of what has happened to you with your uncle and then your mom been kind of over the years? Has that kept you pretty much centered and focused on what the why is of your business with safety and environmental health? I mean, has that kept you focused, or is it, not that it was forgotten, but I would think that's really been kind of your driving force to continue to succeed, has it? And if so, how do you keep that fire alive to keep building and doing good with your business? Because you are.
Well, we are, and yeah, absolutely. That's the foundation of this organization. 20 years ago, I said, that's it. I'm going to do my part. I think in life, what we're supposed to do is give back, and I'm blessed to have this platform to be able to do that. So this is my driving force. I mean, our motto is protecting our workforce for future generations. So all I want to do is protect the workforce, and my goal is really not the workforce, I think. It's mostly their families. I know the tragedy and the difficulty that I had in my life, having to subsidize my mother's income and take care of her, and if I could save any of these children, any of these wives, and make sure, and husbands, and make sure that their spouses come home safely from the workforce, that's what drives me. That's my number one concern. So with that foundation is what I do, and my organization is well-known within industry. Specifically, we're well-known nationally, but California is obviously our state, and that reputation has currently just assisted me to the point where I believe I mentioned to you off the air is that I was appointed by the governor here in the state of California to sit on a board, and that was just incredible.
Congrats.
And I tell my team, I said, look, that's my degree. That's what it is. When you focus and don't compromise quality, and make sure that when we leave, we do a lot of training for a lot of construction folks, and our goal is to make sure when we walk away they've actually learned something through our methods. And
I love it. I have a name for it. It's called the School of Purpose and Passion, right? Along with Hard Knocks, but it's that school of you've got that. I mean, I definitely hear it. Marjorie, how do you keep and share the values with your employees? I mean, do you actually tell the story of why you started the company with every employee, and is that kind of part of your culture as an organization to understand the why when people come on board? Absolutely. We have, if you go to our website, there's a lot of video segments. It's ehsInc.org, and it shares a little bit more in depth my story. But prior to hiring anybody, that's the first thing we let them know, that we have a mission here, and that this is a godly organization. It's a Christian organization, and our goal is to do what we can to make sure that, again, make sure that these workforce gets home safe to their family, because I don't want them to have to deal with what I had to deal with and my brothers had to deal with. So, yeah, everybody knows that at Hire, and most of the people, you'll be surprised, have a story. They have family members that have been hurt or permanently disabled, and that really drives. I mean, I've had people working for me 18, 17, 15 years because of our mission to do what we need to do to make a difference in the workforce. And my goal within the next 5 years is to set a standard, to set an industry standard as far as education is concerned, and training, because there's just a lot of people out there that are trying to do what I'm doing, and when you try to get off easy and just be compliant and check off the box, that's where you get in trouble. And anytime we're out there, it's personal to me. I look at the lives
I look at their families. So everybody
I love
knows
that.
it's the core of our business.
Something just from what you see with the companies you work for, I mean, I'm curious, I think more your opinion and what you see and experience is, do you find that companies just don't know how to keep employees safe, or is it that, they take shortcuts? I mean, just, kind of like more of a generalization of what you experience with organizations. Because I know, I used to have a warehouse and we did gift packaging, and we dealt with scissors and, shrink wrap machines. And, some of them were, they heated up and you had to be really careful from a safety standpoint. But we always tried to make sure our employees were safe, and but then people sometimes don't follow the rules, and, people take shortcuts. So I'm curious what you see. I mean, are companies surprised when some of these things happen, or were they just like they were just not aware of what could happen? What do you see as kind of a standard with organizations?
Depends on the type of organization that you're dealing with. So I've seen large organizations that are not compliant. So this all stems from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So the United States Department of Labor, this is a mandated rule. They all have to follow these safety rules in order to maintain the safety of their employees. And this, believe it or not, which was just established in 1971. So if you think about that, it hasn't been that long.
Wow.
They've really, there were so many fatalities back then. And I think, I'm sure you've seen some of those pictures where you see the workers, in high-rise buildings or just sitting there having lunch. And so that really happened back in the day. So those are the iron workers. There were so many deaths. And finally in 1971, OSHA was established, which is Occupational Safety and Health Administration. But this is a rule. This is mandated by the government that all organizations. Now, to answer your question, it depends. You have organizations where the leadership, it stems from leadership as far as I'm concerned. If you have an organization with many of my clients really take, being that it's in construction, really take safety seriously. They're out there. And
right.
It's a pretty, it's a cultural, it's a cultural thing that you got to think about changing the cultural environment. I've gone into, again, large organizations that I won't name that are not in compliance, and you'll be shocked where you have medium-sized companies that are in compliance. So I can't really pinpoint what it is. Clearly, I've been in business 20 years for a reason. There's a lot of work that needs to be done still. But I don't have a definite answer. It'd be all of the above, really. Some people just want to get through it. It can be a financial burden to some organizations, especially small and medium. Of course, them not realizing that if they get a citation or a death or a fine, that their fines are going to be pretty high. So, which puts a lot of people out of business. So there's no real answer.
I'm curious,
it's all over the place.
Yeah, I'm curious with you, with the companies that bring you in, is it typically, what's the situation where they bring you in? Is it that they're concerned with safety? Have they been cited, or have they had something happen and now all of a sudden it gets their attention? Or is there kind of any, foot in the door kind of thing that happens as a trigger event that prompts them to need you more than they want to, maybe?
Well, yes, and yes, Michelle. All of the above.
I know I asked 20 questions at once. Sorry about that.
I know, but the answer is yes. The companies will call me, usually small to medium-sized companies will give me a call, and we'll come in and do a safety audit, and we'll help them put together their policies and procedures just to make sure that they're compliant. And then we'll come in and do a lot of training for their employees, whether they're building scaffolding, whether we're dealing with heavy equipment, we certify them, whether it's fall protection, confined space, whatever it might be, we go in and make sure that their employees are aware of all their, all the safety procedures that need to happen before they enter a space, for instance. So it depends. We're called in. We're sometimes the safety management company. So it's just less expensive for them, instead of hiring a safety professional, to call us and say, hey, can you guys be our safety professional? So I have a team of safety professionals here that I'll assign a specific person to a company and we'll manage their safety. We become their safety person. So it's a variety of things that we can do. Just to let you know, we have over 200 safety topics that we go in, and what's really made us different, Michelle, is that we go in and we customize everything. There's a lot of safety companies that, take it off the shelf, but what
boilerplate,
yeah, we are not boilerplate. We don't do that. So what we do is we literally go in ahead in advance. We take pictures if it's allowed. We take, 360 videos, and we incorporate that if they have their own policies, procedures. Our safety professionals review them before they go on site. Everything we do is customized. We find out history if there's been a lot of injuries in a certain part of the business. And so just really making sure that we're training specific to their work environment is really what's made us just stand out in this world of, occupational health and safety.
Yeah, you're very passionate about what you talk about, which is what's so great, right? It's why you run a business and you're building your empire and going international. For some of our very short time that's left, I want to focus a little bit on you, because I know you have a mantra. That's why we chose the title today, for turning tragedy to triumph. But, we have listeners that have overcome or are dealing with adversity, right? Or some, stuff happens to all of us. I have similar, not similar to you, but, some things that have happened to me in building a business. And I've been in business, like you, about 25 years. And I definitely can say it's like the adversity makes you so much appreciate the good that comes around, because it does. But what would be some advice you would have for some of our listeners on how they can deal with, how do you deal with it? What would be some slices of advice or tips you would give any of our listeners on kind of overcoming adversity a little bit? Some people handle it really well, some don't. Some kind of go there and stay there. And you are very much a positive and inspirational piece here, I can tell. And I'm just getting to know you. So what would you share with our listeners on that? Help them out here, Marjorie.
Well, I'm going to try. I actually, Michelle, I go to a lot of high schools. I graduated from an alley district, a high school, and I'll go over there and talk to the kids. And if you want to talk about adversity, every excuse you might have to not start a business, I can tell you that it's just an excuse. Because I was raised single mom, first generation. Yeah. My first language was Spanish. This country is just incredible. It's so incredible that I have a son that's currently serving in the Marine Corps, active duty. So it's
that's awesome.
I just love this country, and I'm a proud American. Yeah. But here's advice. I think what I've seen in industry is a lot of women, they want to show a different persona. One of the greatest advice I ever got from someone that was mentoring me when I was younger, before I started my business, is, stop trying to be me, be yourself. And that stuck to me, because I think many times we get in our own heads and we think, I'm not polished enough, or I don't think I can do this. And it wasn't an easy ride. If I'm telling that it was an easy ride, then I'm absolutely misrepresenting it, because it's still not. But I'm not afraid to show my weaknesses. And I think what we need to do, this is a woman's show, is show our weaknesses and be comfortable speaking with others about where we might need some assistance. And every failure that I've made, I've learned from it. And I'm hard on myself. No one's harder on ourselves than us women. And just know that many of us are actually in the same boat. I have no problem sharing where I came from. I'm now sitting on a board with people with PhDs and masters, and I don't have a degree. But what I do have is, like you mentioned, is the passion. If you really, truly love what you're doing and you really want to make a difference with whatever your idea is, you can do it. And I didn't have money. Some people don't have money, and I want women to really focus and just really be comfortable with who they are, because people really appreciate that more. You've asked me a couple of times, how do I deal with the male-dominated field? And I'm going to tell you how. I grew up with 3 younger brothers.
That'll do it. There you go.
Thanks to you guys and all the inappropriate noises I heard. And
That's awesome.
So now,
you were the girl in charge of them. I love it.
Oh, well, when I wasn't in charge, when they were able to keep me down, that's when I started, crying a little bit louder. So I'm still got smart there. But honestly,
you're right.
I just want people to feel comfortable.
I wanted to say I want to hear more, because it's like, the thing is, it's like, this is what's so fascinating to me, Marjorie, is that when you hear people say be more authentic, then I will hear women that will say, how authentic should I be? I mean, nobody wants to see all of our warts and our war wounds. And talk some about, you don't tell everybody everything all the time, right? I mean, you don't need to be, truly going down the path of everything. I mean, you kind of like build relationships, but people want to see authenticity. And I'd love your thoughts on that, because I hear women that go, well, I'm being authentic and now I scared people. And I'm like, well, okay, so you got to kind of, dole it out in bite-sized pieces, or that's my take. What would yours be on being, is there a way, is there too authentic, I guess is my question.
Well, yes. Okay. Yes. I mean, we don't need to walk in and talk about things that aren't relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Don't walk in and just share your life story unless it's relevant to the business you're building, right? Because that's what my clients know, and that's what they like, that we're passionate about their employee safety, and many employees are there. But absolutely, I'm going to tell you one thing, that I grew this business off perception, and perception is key. In the beginning, I mentioned that copier machine and answering machine in one. I would literally, it'd be just me in the room, and I would pick up the phone, and someone would call because I left a flyer, and I'm like, okay, may I ask where you're located? And they would say, Irvine, California. I said, okay, hold on while I transfer you to your regional manager.
Oh, I love it.
And then I would put them on hold, change my voice, get back on. There's clearly, some smart ways of doing it. Thank God I don't have to do that anymore. But, that's how it all started. And anything is possible in this country. It's just such a great country.
Here, and I totally agree. And, I wish sometime we would do a radio show just on the kind of creative things we do in building a business, right? The stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like I used to have one of those voicemail systems that said, if you'd like to talk to customer service, press 1. If you would like to blah, blah, blah. And it was all me. It was all coming to me, but it just made us look, that we were more robust than we were. So I love that. That's so awesome. We only have a couple minutes left. So I want to talk a little bit about where ehsInc is going. So for you guys, I mean, I know you mentioned at the beginning you're going international into Canada, but, help me understand, like, what is the grand vision here for you? Are you building an empire to leave it as a legacy? What's the future look like for you if you could wave a magic wand and tell us what's going to happen with your company in the future?
So our goal here is to eventually, my goal here is to eventually meet, not mine, but my team's goal is to reach 1 million lives. That's what we want to do. And mm-hmm. our legacy here, it's not just my legacy, because I didn't build this on my own. I built this with my team. I truly, you have to be humble and realize that as CEOs that we're working for our employees. And that's one thing that I've set, that I've really set up my organization. So, they know I work for them, but we plan on utilizing technology. We have a great system here. We work with, we've partnered up with a company called Safety VC, which stands for Safety Verification Card. And what we do is we utilize technology to make sure we can track employees' records and training. And, they literally have a card with a QR technology on it that has all of their training records on it, and it's something you can access internationally. So we're doing that. We've also created some strategic partnerships with some of the partners that we recently partnered up with was Ramsco, Interlink, and EmergiClean is our New York facility, and also we've partnered with AGC of California, which is the Association of General Contractors, and IAQA, which is Indoor Air Quality. So all of these partnerships, what we've done is we're in the middle right now opening up in 23 different states, 27 new learning centers across the nation, and then we're opening up in Canada. So we have our learning centers all over the nation. By the end of the year, we'll have all of them up and running. So we just want to make sure that we provide exemplary training, and part of the safety verification card that I spoke of is what they're doing is any information, any training records from across the nation, we're vetting. They're vetting the trainers or the safety specialists and make sure that they're all compliant. That they're actually teaching the way they're supposed to be teaching and evaluating. So that's going to be our legacy, is just to really make sure that the level of education, the level of consulting work or whatever it might be, it's to the level it needs to be. We need to fix that. It's just many companies are getting away with just getting somebody in and saying, hey, just sign off for us, and not actually educating employees the way, that's their lives.
I know that's amazing. And, we're almost out of time, but I've got, what's fascinating to me about you is that I think you are quite humble and yet super successful. And do you ever, I'm going to ask this, because do you ever just kind of pinch yourself and go, holy cow, look what we have created? I mean, do you ever just kind of stop yourself and think back over the 20 years and go, it's incredible what you're building. Do you ever just kind of stop and say, wow, look what you've done?
Every day. I'm humbled.
Every day.
I'm grateful.
Good.
This is God's business. I get the privilege of running it and leading it, but every day before I walk in, and I'm in shock. I mean, I'm still in shock, and I think if you remain humble and appreciative for what's been provided for us, of course we're working hard and it's not easy, but if we don't lose focus of why we have it, and that's a problem. A lot of people do get caught up on titles, and I don't. I really don't. I work for them, and they know it. I work so much for them that they kick me out of meetings now. They're like, hey,
I love that. Well, and you kind of look at your employees as, you serve your employees and your customers, and that's a great way to build a business, right? We're all here to be of service in some fashion, which I love. You ooh motivation and passion and purpose, and that's one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on the show. So thank you for being our leading lady today, and I want to make sure and give you a chance. If any of our listeners want to reach out and raise their hand and contact you, how would you like them to get a hold of you, Marjorie? Can you share?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is just going to our website, ehsInc.org, and just go to the Contact Us page and just leave a message, and all those messages get to me. So if anybody's interested to get a little bit of advice, I do that all the time. I'm here. We need to help each other, so please reach out.
Oh, love that about you. Well, that's our show. So thank you, Marjorie, and I want to thank our listeners for being on our show.